There's no subtext. They're just doing what rich people do, and
text.
they look crazy because it's a cool comic.
It's not cool at all. It's actually so cool with the KEWL that it's actually stupid. Hello, everybody, and welcome to an episode of This Week in X, presented by Crushing Comics. I am your host, Crisis with a K, and I'm here with three of my friends from around the world from me. That is Fariha, Harry, and Tyler. And we're here to talk about the debut of X-Corp, X-Corp number 1, out on the 12th of May, 2021. And this comes with our standard warning. We're going to go full spoilers on this issue. We're going to connect it to other issues. This is a spoiler-filled discussion. For X-Corp number 1, we're going to start with our initial reactions before we dig in more deeply, and that's going to begin with Tyler.
This one is a weird one for me. It is, I mean, I don't dislike it. It just did not captivate me for issue number 1. So while, we are obviously meant to take that Krakow is offering something more than biotech to the world, it kind of muddled its way through the issue a little bit. So, I mean, one thing I appreciate is that Tini Howard does not super dumb down some of the business stuff. So, so it doesn't have that, oh, I wave my fingers and I wave my hand and this works kind of thing. So the other thing is also, I think Alberto's art will take some getting used to for me, especially, with respect to some of the facial acting. So I'm going to give it like a 2.75 weird horses out of 5.
Okay, Harry.
I love hearing your opinions, Tyler, but every once in a while you just say something I was about to say, and I'm just like, he beat me to it. I like this. I enjoyed this more than I expected. I do think the kind of business jargon and kind of the actual plot of the story was engaging for me. I thought, for the most part, I really liked a lot of the voices. There was some weird stuff that I'm sure we'll get into. My big thing is the art. I think the art is pretty good. I think I like the colors. I like just the figures, but I think the facial acting is really weak. I think it's very static, kind of like dolls. And for a book that's so focused, Fariha's got it. For a book
there's Monet.
There she is. For a book that's so focused on backroom dealings and business and relationships and conversations, like, you want a book that can get a lot of facial and like emotions and almost animations across. And this doesn't do that, which I'm pretty go with the flow for the most part, but this was actively taking me out of the story, which was annoying because I think there's a lot to like here and there's a lot I'm still interested in. I want to see where this goes. Anyway, I'm going to give it a 3.25 dead eyes out of 5.
Fariha.
So the thing is, the art was absolutely on point for the first 2 pages because it's supposed to be boring corporate advertisement, and it made perfectly. But then it kept on being a boring corporate advertisement, including the story itself. And I just don't know what's the difference between this and Marauders. I just don't know what was the purpose of this. What is it serving? There is some good moments, but I was still like, okay, so seriously, there is no Krakowan in United Nations that can squash some of the things that is brought up over here. I mean, what is this? I mean, how much power Krakow actually have, and what are they trying to do with it? Because I don't know. It just really bummed me out. I mean, even though this has 2 of my favorite characters like Monet and Madrox in it, and then the himbo angel is there, but I was like, okay, what is it? And then seriously, 1.2 billion Indians, and there's only 1 mutant. Seriously, really, Marvel, do better. Try better. And then based on that, I'll just say it's 2 out of 5.
I appreciated things that all of you appreciated about it and had detractions you all had, and I'll try not to repeat. For me, I really enjoy a story that takes exceptional people through the drudgery of bureaucracy. There's something very appealing and real to that about me, and it allows you to tell a fantastical tale that many people can appreciate. Many people have been in a boring business meeting. Many people have waited in line at the DMV. Like, it's a common experience, just like the weather, you know? And I think that with so much time to plan something really bureaucratic and serpentine and something the X-Men just can't solve with powers, I just think this fell short. Like, I just don't think it got there. And I don't understand why we had to launch this now. Like, why did we need this now before the gala? Why did we need it at all? I think I agree with Tyler. I like that the business speak had a certain veracity to it. And there are other things I liked about it too, which we'll get into, but it just really felt kind of underwhelming. Whereas like Way of X had just as much runway. I mean, not to just compare book to book, they're all different, but Way of X had just as much runway to say like, what are we going to do about this religion thing? And it turned it into so much more than religion. And this had so much runway to say, what are we going to do about this business thing? And I feel like it turned it into so much less than it could have been. So I'm a little bummed personally.
Exactly. And the thing is, I feel like X-Corp should have come before A Way of X. Now that we have seen A Way of X1, no number one will ever be ever satisfied, ever. It will
There's
ever be good.
To that.
Well, you know, I mean,
it will never be good.
For me, X Factor number 1 is also very, very good. So
I think there's been a lot of great number ones. I don't mean to hold Way of X up on this pedestal. I just think of something that took a seed because, you know, in the same way that Way of X was perhaps seeded by the Crucible issue of X-Men, this you could argue is very much seeded by things like issue 4 of X-Men, which was a long time ago now. And so, I mean, you know, they only had 2 months less of runway, although who knows, you know, Howard's been in the office longer than Spurrier. So, you know, I all these things come into my mind.
Well, and also the start of X-Men Empire number 1.
Right. Which also
that's definitely
Well, the way that this story unfurls is such that it would be really hard to just kind of go through it page by page. So I'm going to just go through it character by character. And I think we'll wind up catching everything. We'll kind of go to the most featured character to the least featured character. And so the most featured character, much to all of our delight, I'm sure, because we do, I think, all enjoy her, is Monet. Now, Monet, typically, you know, she was part of Generation X. She, you know, previously was Penance, but then got unlocked from Penance and became her own self. It's a whole thing. She was in X Factor, which Fariha could enlighten us to all of her history there. But Monet is, comes from a life of money and privilege, and she is looking for people to get it right the first time, or just try harder, Marvel Girl. And she is the co-CXO, Chief Executive Officer of X-Corp, and she really thinks it's all moving a bit too slow. She wants to launch now. She wants to get rid of their enemies now. She wants to do it all now. So she's really the driving force of this issue, and she also, as she does all these things now, she wants to put together a board, which is just another mutant machine that she and Xavier agrees that X-Corp should have. So, Fariha, you have a lot of experience with Monet through reading Peter David's X Factor. What did you think of the version of Monet we get here and the things that she gets up to?
I mean, it's on point for Monet. Like, you know, she's impatient. She wants to get it done and all of that. And I think she was trying to also do her inner Emma Frost, trying to channel her inner Emma Frost about assembling the team. And it felt a little short because of that. I mean, I just don't know. It just feels like she was just going up to people and like, yeah, come. But there was no style. There was no flair. I just felt like this was something that, I don't know. I the whole time I was like, oh, okay, that's it. Really? That's it? You're not going to offer anything more other than a board seat? Like, what is the board seat is even going to do? Like, you know, and why are people gonna, you know, follow? I get like why Madrox will come because they have the history and everything. But what's like Trinary? Why will she come join you? So I don't know. I just kind of missed that. But one thing kind of stuck out to me. You said that there was like a penance. There was a separate identity with her that she needed to be separated from.
Yeah.
Is there a single ex-ladies that this doesn't happen to?
No. This is very different.
No, this is very different.
This is a good one. This is very different.
Okay.
From anything that came before. And we need to do a reread for Gen X because it has Emma and it has M in it.
Okay. I mean, because I'm like, are you serious? Like, this is like a same exact thing that repeat to every single ex-ladies? Okay. All right, I'm gonna come down.
This
I'm
is
gonna
very different. This is very, very different.
I'm gonna save my anger for something different. But anyway, but okay,
Tune
that's
in
good.
for Children of the Atom later on.
But the thing is, no, I was just saying, like, I just felt like it just felt short. It didn't have the pizzazz that I wanted.
Harry, first, before you dig in, do you have a history with Monet at all? Like, have you read all of that Peter David X Factor or any of Generation X?
Yeah, I've got egg on my face here. I've read that entire X Factor run, but it has been a very long time.
Oh, same for me.
Yeah, I don't remember her voice as well as Fariha does, so that wasn't like ringing in my brain as much. I really like her in this, and I really like Angel in this. I think them as a pair are kind of the strongest part of the issue, and just where they're kind of just exemplifying just the carrot and the stick approach to all their interactions. And you're right, she is kind of just being blunt and aggressive, but like it's very simple. It worked for me. Like I understand like her dynamic with Sweet Himbo Angel, and I like her powers, and I do like her getting this team together, even though you're right, for like the interaction with Trinary. It's one of those things that didn't land as well for me, which is just kind of more that kind of, I don't want to come off harsh, but that kind of like middle kind of ground feeling you get from a lot of Teenie Howard's books we've been reading. I don't think that's unfair to say. But yeah, I think it works fairly well overall. And like, I liked kind of where it went by the end of the issue.
I mean, to be fair to Teenie Howard, I think, at least for me, I feel like her books read better when you read it as an arc than individual issues. So but then just do remember that this is published on a monthly basis. So you do have to captivate readers on an ongoing basis instead of just trade readers.
Just to be nice, I do want to say I do like this issue a lot more than most of the Excalibur books that we've read lately. That's just me getting my my good feelings out. Anyway,
I mean, for me,
go ahead.
I kind of like wasn't very. I mean, there's something which was pleasantly surprised, which was the M penance thing that changed a little bit into a banner hawk thing, and I mean it is fine. It is quite a good surprise. But that was like entirely not what I was expecting. So, and I don't know about her being this
CX.
This rash person, right? Like, is it because of this secondary mutation where she's the penance now, or is it something else? Because I mean, she has always been a little bit aloof and I'm better than everyone kind of feel to her. Over here there's a little bit of that, but there is also a little bit of this impatient person, which I thought maybe not quite on point, and maybe it has something to do with this M penance thing that Teenie Howard is playing with here. So I mean, for now I think it is an interesting beat that we are seeing here right now for this. I mean, for this character.
That's how I took
Monet
it.
herself would be disappointed by this interpretation.
I took it just more like, it's like kind of like a higher level of aggression because of that secondary mutation, and also maybe this is just kind of like one part of this dichotomy that Howard wants to have in the story. But I definitely kind of linked it to this new porcupine monster form that she has going. Well, that's what it is.
Something really interesting always to me about Monet is how much she is a reflection of Emma, which I think in some ways is true of a lot of the women from the Generation X cast. Like the way they relate to Emma and mirror Emma is some of the most interesting components of them. She's really similar to Emma in a lot of ways. And she's also kind of pushes against that because she doesn't want to come from that motivation either. And I think one of the interesting things about her, I always describe her as she's a little bit haughty. She kind of always assumes she could have done it a little bit better, but it's a little bit beneath her to try to do it. And she just wants to kind of direct you. And part of the comedy of that is that that she's not usually in charge, whether that's X Factor or the 2013 X-Men run. She's kind of a backseat driver, and that's the fun of Monet. That's the whole bit, right? And so I do think it's interesting to now have her be in charge and see that her backseat driving is now manifesting as impatience. Kind of like, okay, I'm in charge. I told you what to do. I explained it correctly. Why can't you get it right? I guess I'll just come and do it myself, which is like an awful manager, right? You know,
yeah.
But I actually, the more and more I thought about the issue, I'm like, that actually kind of makes sense. But, you know, Tyler said the word that really keyed for me, which is impatient. I like the idea that, you know, Penance is her Hulk form, but it's not that she's always angry. She's always impatient. And like, if she gets too impatient, she loses the ability to finesse and she becomes Penance, you know, which is an interesting contrast to Emma, whose diamond form is more about being impervious and basically being able to sit back and wait, right? Emma turns to diamond and she just kind of waits for you to get all of it out. And she's like, are you done? Whether you're trying to punch her or whether you're in a psychic battle with her or whatever, because she's impervious. But Monet kind of is in an opposite direction. And I enjoy that. So I'm kind of hoping that we're going to do more with that. I'm going to be really annoyed if it's just like Monet Hulk and turning into Penance. I think if it's really tied to like her annoyance and her impatience, then there's something there. And I think Teenie Howard, I always say she's one of the best character voice writers at Marvel. And even if it didn't come through in this issue, I do have faith that she might have found this interesting vein of Monet to tap into, but it didn't really fully come through in this issue.
I relate to that whole idea of like, you know, I can do it better, but I'm just above this to try it.
I think it's like a cool dynamic.
I'm just way above this.
It's cool to have this dynamic of like just like a frustrated, super annoyed like person trying to deal with all these like IPOs and slow recruitments and business dealings, and she just loses it halfway through and like kind of messes up like a telepath link, which I think was a fun little beat.
I think that was probably the best beat in the issue for me, like going back and rereading it. I love that Monet is in gaming terms, she's a tank mage, you know, like she can do everything. She's a psychic, she's strong, she's flies, she's impervious, she's smart, she's money. But I like that it plays that it's also like a jack of all trades, master of none. Like there's always a chance for her to screw it up a little bit. And that when I went back and outlined it, I'm like, this is the most delightful part of the whole issue, you know? And then she's like, rah! She like rips the door off the hinges. And Warren's like, hello, you're not coming in. It just was like a really funny
good moment.
But we must talk about though, it's like that we are simply superior. I mean, that should be the tagline for this company. Like, we are simply superior. And
that was probably the best Monet line in the whole issue.
That two plastic face is like,
like, it's perfect. It was perfect for that. I was like, you know, he's saying that, hello and welcome to X-Corp. You're simply superior. I'm like, if I saw that on a TV, look at no, other way.
Other way. Sorry. There she is.
Look at that. If I saw that on TV, I'm like, I'm not buying these people's shares.
No, I know that.
No thanks.
That was
no
actually.
Thanks.
I mean, that was what you said earlier, right? Those first 2 pages were like perfect because it really was. And I mean, Monet also had.
I even heard it in that, you know, in that advertising voice.
Yeah,
like, you know, it's like, we are doing innovation.
We're here for you, X-Corp.
Yes,
like,
and then it has that like upbeat music at the end.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Hey, Johnny, we're simply superior. That kind of thing.
But I mean,
I loved that.
That's not just the. I mean, there's also 2 other lines that Monet said in this issue, which I thought was kind of really good. I mean, one is that she shot back at Xavier, saying that we do not make ourselves targets. People target us because of what we are.
Yes,
which is very true for this, and which also kind of resonate with me because, you know, I sometimes tend to make a choice to fade into the background than to like stand out, you know, for good or for bad. And sometimes it works when, you know, people don't notice you. And sometimes it doesn't work because people choose to target you. And the more you try to fade away, the more you get targeted because you are deemed, you know, you're not confident and you're trying to hide. And there must be a reason why you're trying to hide and that kind of thing. Yeah. And then the other line sorry.
No,
go ahead. No, I mean the other line which I thought was really good is that when Monet pitched to Madrox, it's like, be a stakeholder instead of doing monkey work. And I thought that was really funny because Dr. Nemesis was the one who was the brain behind the drugs, right? So what is Madrox doing here in the production plant? Is like, oh, I lost a week of
Madrox seems incredibly satisfied with himself and his work. I don't think we should look over that. He seems to be very happy with himself, but that was my read.
Well, let's pivot to him. We don't have to do Angel next. Let's pivot to Madrox. So, Harry,
before we move. Oh no! I just wanted to point out one thing about that people try to target, people make us the target and stuff like that. To that very point is like a lot of the time people talk about like, anytime there's a diverse character in a story, it's like, oh, give me a good story. Why do we need to hear about their story or something like that? It's like, because the reason all those issues comes up in the diverse character story, because people don't let you forget that you are that diverse, not different character person, right? So that's one of the reasons it does come up again and again. And it's one of those things. It's like, if you stopped targeting people, maybe you wouldn't have to listen to their problem all the time. Think about it.
Talk to us a little bit more about Madrox. He's happy with the company of himself. He just wants to experiment and be left to his own devices. What did you think about that?
The idea of Madrox is like the worker bees of this kind of like establishment, and also being kind of the research division, all this. It's such like an obvious idea that I think you can almost like underestimate how good an idea it is, where he's just become like this force unto himself that provides all of the manpower. But also, it's also like he seems very comfortable with himself. He seems very into his work. And my favorite thing is he's super protective of his dukes, where he's just like, they're not disposable. These are part of me. And there's a part later in the issue where he tells Monet, he's like, yeah, no, they're not disposable. This is me. And later in the issue, he's like, yo, what did I say? Like, this is part of me. Like, why are you doing? And like, there's like a familiarity with him and Monet, obviously. And there's just like, it's like an interesting place for him because he's been used in so many weird ways since X Factor. He always like pops up somewhere, and it's always like a little different than that. This is a different thing. I feel like he's still a little goofy, but like it's so interesting and it's so different that like I really liked it. This is definitely my third favorite part of the book. It's besides the Sweet Himbo and Monet.
Do you know that why Monet hates the dupes?
You have to remind me. It's been over.
Oh, yeah. It's because, he duped her into sleeping with her.
Right. Oh, my God.
With the dupes.
Yeah.
That's why she hates the dupes. That's why she has no time for dupes.
Yeah, she's like, bring me the original. Are you like, she's like, I'm not meeting with any of the worker bees. Bring me the queen.
Exactly. So it came from that. Like,
Fariha, I feel guilty you remember that series so much because I loved it when I read it for like 3 straight weeks because it's so long. But
I don't remember Morrigan, for example. I remember this because it's the important things I remember. But yeah.
Tyler, what did you think about Madrox here and his pivot to being science guy? I mean, it used to be kind of like each dupe had their own use, but I think that really changed a little bit, especially with Matthew Rosenberg's Madrox run, where he really kind of emphasized that Madrox, almost like Prodigy, is all of the things that he has been adjacent to. So did this science Madrox work for you?
I mean, it was a little bit, what do you call for me, it was a little bit jarring, maybe because the Madrox that Peter David has wrote for so long is so established in my mind that sometimes, even though this tracks with what you said earlier, that this tracks with the Multiple Man series that came out to in a way resurrect him, and so in some ways, it's supposed to track, but in some ways it still feels really jarring because that's like, oh, this doesn't sound very much like Madrox. And I think that is one of the problem I have with this issue as well. Though it's not a major one, because I think the problem lies more with me and how I remember Madrox as opposed to well, let's move on. He's different in this era now. I mean, he's also the sower for the Hellfire Gala.
He's working.
Yep.
So I'm surprised that you said that, because Madrox's origin started in a lab, being a lab assistant for Moira, and then being a scientist.
Yeah.
So I thought that, this kind of going back to his roots, like he's remembering his old days as a lab, lab person, and then decided to go and get his doctorate. Now he's like, okay, I'm no longer the lab assistant. I have upgraded, and then made a career move. And then became the scientist and all of that. But I absolutely love, as Harry pointed out, that this is like a one way to kind of keep security down, making sure that no mutant gets settled with low paying jobs. But so we're just gonna use Madrox dupes. He's gonna be the bartender, the waiter, the sower, the lab production operators, all of that is just all gonna be Madrox dupes. So how just slap him, get a dupe, and then get him to work.
He also,
I absolutely like that.
I mean, he also put a sinister, right? He created a dupe, and then he took out his lab coat. He's like, okay, you are in charge now. I'm going to go.
I like that part. He gives him the coat. He's like, this is yours now.
Yeah.
So I think it's all started, he learned for the best. I personally liked it. Although I was kind of hoping he talks about Layla at some point. Layla and his child. Like they're not
the real child.
And that's one of the things I kept on thinking, that when she was saying that, oh, come join a board, I thought that will be the hook to get him on the board. Why is it that all the ladies are being hooked by their children, but the men are just like, okay, here's a board of space, I'm just gonna go sit there? Why is that? So I was like, come on, let's use that.
I think you all highlighted it brilliantly. And the only thing that I'll say is that I'm sure for people who really love X Factor Madrox, which went on for, 7 years, almost 8 years, in the second run, he was also in the original X Factor run, that this idea of a primary Madrox who's a little bit more put together and confident is jarring, but it's not necessarily not him. I think, especially with the way that he's been used in recent years, to just bring him back as comedy Madrox who doesn't have a reign over his dupes, that would actually feel, I think, very repetitive and derivative. I don't necessarily think you need to go and read all the things that he was in. Some of them didn't land very well, but I'm willing, as with a lot of the other things in this book, I'm actually willing to see where this leads, because I think it's an interesting thing to do with him. So
and also,
oh, go ahead, Ari.
Well, I was just going to say, I think a lot of that goes with, this doesn't seem to be Madrox's first day on the job doing this. Even if it seems like a leap for him, I would just assume that he's been doing this for a while. So it comes off a little more natural. Although I kind of agree with Tyler that it's very hard to not see him as the Peter David version is kind of locked in for me of that character. That will always be the interpretation now. But that was about it.
That version also had a thing for an underage kid who was
move on.
Maybe it's better to move away.
and then also he sucked in his own son. So maybe it's better to move on.
X Factor's fun to read, but there's some really wowza stuff in there.
So questionable stuff.
I'm going to open the floor now, first come, first serve, to talk about Trinary and her role in this, because Trinary is the newest character in this club. She was introduced in X-Men Red by Tom Taylor, and a lot of people get a little frustrated that she was introduced to basically be the tech support character. Teeny Howard seems to try to introduce a little bit more than that here in a couple of ways. One is that she introduces her basically going right back to her life of crime, because she still feels like people need to get what they deserve, which is I think a nice texture to add to her. Mm-hmm. And also that, but then her power, which is much more seen here as kind of negotiating with computer systems, really made it seem very kind of like Doug Ramsey Sage to me, and in a way made her seem less different and unique to me. So I feel like I got a little bit more that I maybe didn't have before, and then I feel like I got a little bit less, and I can't decide where I landed. So who has a strong opinion about Trinary? Don't all yell at once, but all yell at once.
Because she's from India, so tech support is her power. So I find her to be very, I don't know, when she showed up in X-Men Red, which was overtly preachy, even for us here in the panel, I was just like, oh, please, no. And and then she showed up here, but it seems like to what you were saying, Peter, that it's like there's a little bit difference to it, but at the same time, like, well, then I guess like she's a backup for Ramsey.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this character. I didn't read X-Men Red, and
Don't.
now that y'all are really, now that you're bringing it up, I can't unsee the issues with this character a little bit in every direction. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting that she went back to kind of ripping people off or what have you. It's an interesting place to start off with the character. I think the power's obviously going to come in handy a lot for this team in this ecosystem of like kind of business and what have you. I just can't stop thinking about the tech support thing now.
Yeah, it bothers me so much. I was like, oh my God. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's India? Like that's
Well, she was there in Hawks too as tech support.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's how the character was created. You know, the same way every time Dust shows up, I'm like, oh no. You know, I know she gotten better, and then with with the existence of Kamala Khan and everything, it just kind of feels less like aggressive or less weird than it was before. But yeah, so there was one time Kamala's like, did the Senju just talk to me because we have the same religion? I'm like, yeah, go girl, tell her. Like, you know. So yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying. Like, Trinary as a character has always kind of bugged me a little bit.
That's why I'm kind of into the idea that she can't stop being Robin Hood. She can't, like, she's almost like compelled to throw a wrench in the works when sees somebody abusing power, because to me that's texture that distinguishes her from Duggan Stage, that distinguishes her from just being tech support, and that gives her a reason to be. I kind of like the idea of like, is Trinary going to be a fan of all the business moves the X-Corp is making? I hope not, because that does not seem in character for her. The thing I don't want to see is her going down the whole, I'm so entranced by this cool technology, you know, like I want to be one with the Matrix. Like that beat has been done, you know? So I kind of was really interested in how one of the big beats for her in this issue is that she's having this in the background, like ongoing negotiation with the virus in the computer. And they're like, give it money. And she's like, no, I'm just going to keep talking to it. It's actually very complex. And like that to me is actually kind of interesting that she's like, what if she's on its side? What if she actually thinks it makes some good points, actually? Those to me are all much more interesting beats than like, I am here to resolve your connectivity issue. So I'm kind of hoping that we continue to see her go in that direction that's maybe a little bit more gray, because I think that actually suits this team really well.
Well,
she's also very much the Kate Pride of the team. That's why she was picked. Like literally, she was picked because of that.
Absolutely
like yeah, like, you know, she can stop me. Like if I'm making weird choices, she will be the stopper. You know. But the thing is, what is the relationship between Monet and Trinary that Trinary would be impressed enough to pick her?
Well,
I don't know. Or is it because where is it? Is it because from Hawks 5?
I don't
know. I don't think so. I think Monet is basically pitching something to Trinary, saying that I mean, the way I read it is that Monet is doing things the unconventional way, and she basically called Trinary out for trying to lie to her in the face, and Trinary for her part basically flashed that cheeky smile, say, haha, okay, I'm caught, but so what? And you know, so that is the part which I kind of kept sort of zoned in on, because I feel like Trinary has a streak of cheekiness, has a streak of rebellious here, which kind of works for Monet, because she doesn't want to be by the book. She wants someone on her side, just like Emma wants Kate on her side to do things.
And so also to almost like act as her proxy. Like she's much like Emma has to kind of be buttoned up. And so then she has people like Callisto helping her. Like Monet's like, well, I can't really do all of the undermining things because again, now I'm in charge, but I could have Trinary here who I know is going to make undermining decisions like I usually would.
It reinforces her reckless side while Angel's just like, oh, we should do things by the book and all that. It's like a different kind of energy, which is fun.
Well, speaking of the energy of everybody's favorite himbo, he's here, he's blonde, he has wings, and that's the character development we get for Angel in this issue. He's here. He's a bird. And so he is sent as the person who should meet with the CEO of this pharma company that Xavier bought and basically gutted for means of production, patents, whatever, during the ascent of the Xavier Corporation that we kind of hear about at the beginning of House of X #1. I feel like maybe you should have sent Monet instead of Angel personally, but you sent Angel. So here's what we got. I think we can use this as a proxy to talk about the central conflict, which you'll note we haven't talked about too much, which if I can editorialize as your moderator, it's because it's boring. No, it's not a good conflict for the first issue. Like, this CEO breeds robotic horses and he's angry that he got bought out. And so he's going to try to blackmail them. The one interesting part about it, I think, and then I'll turn it over starting with Tyler, is that he's negotiating, but he's also using sanctions against them. So he basically gets the UN to be like, you're technically not supposed to profit off of things in the Savage Land. And that's interesting because it's kind of like saying to the X-Men, you don't have carte blanche to do all of these things that you want to do just because you're mutants and whatever. Like, you have to exist, and they exist in a society, as one might say, and there's still rules. That I liked. But the whole conversation with him as Angel and the constant cutaways to the robotic horses, that was my nadir in this issue. That is where I was really ready to rage quit, and it slowly ticked back up. So this is my little, I'm turning into Monet, or Penance. I'm turning into Penance, and Tyler's going to go first to see if I'm going to fully transform or if we're going to talk me down.
Well, this character first appears in Hawks #1.
He's on the tour, right?
Ambassador. Yeah, he's one of the ambassador, and he's I think. I can't remember if it's mentioned in the dialogue or it is in the director's card where he is being called the French ambassador.
Yeah.
So my assumption was that he was the French ambassador to Israel at that time because they were in Jerusalem, and somehow, I mean, and at that point, I do remember that one of the cuckoo says that, oh well, he's a real ambassador, but he basically bought his way into the ambassadorhood. So that kind of tracks with what he's doing here. So basically, he is just trying to play politics, with Krakoa, with Angel here, thinking that he has the upper hand, thinking that there is some way to force them to renegotiate the terms which, in which they came to before that. But I agree with you. I don't understand the whole horse thing. I don't know what they're doing. So it's like weird horses, like with like fire mane and things like that. It
was all just for the analogy of like, it's a race. Yes. I'm like, okay, I don't
They're cool. Pages. No, the horses are cool. That's what's cool about them.
They're not.
I learned Harry.
They're rich people at a horse race. That's what. There's no subtext. They're just doing what rich people do, and text. They look crazy because it's a cool comic.
It's just text.
There's no subtext. It's just text.
No, it's just horses. They look great.
But the one thing that one thing that sort of caught my eye, I mean, or when I was reading it, was like, oh, he said something that, oh, Krakoa has brought a factor of infinity to this race. So does he know about the resurrection?
Yeah, it's always kind of unclear how much they're aware of that in the outside world.
I was wondering if that was just like a flourish. Yeah, for like a flourish, like talking about like the long lifespans and curing like mental disease and what have you. But it did seem it could go either way. So I wondered what it could be. I already
any other thoughts on our everybody's favorite himbo?
I think the horses are good. I'm going to just stay on that. No, I mean, I do like that, like this scene. I agree. It's not the most like riveting. And by the way this guy's drawn, it's just different enough from the Hoxpox like version of him.
Yes.
That like I was a little thrown off. He's got better hair in this book, but like,
and he has colored glasses, the frame is
it's
more flamboyant a little bit.
Yeah. He's got a thing going on. But like, I did like that, in Hoxpox, it's like, we're going to get our way with business. And then this book is like, hey, just so you know, like there are like wrinkles and laws that might make this a more precarious and like intriguing situation. But it doesn't really fully get the whole way. And I do think the art's better in this. I was wondering if someone could like kind of eliminate that. I feel like it's just looks better.
I mean,
not being very eloquent.
Before we pass the ball to Fariha, I would like to say that this actually makes me this scene between the two characters, I think the color works because they are trying to play Angel in white and this Jean Pierre in dark colors, kind of like devil. So it's kind of like playing that visual game here that this is the good guy, the angel guy, the angelic guy, and this is like the devil. So
and his face, the Cole, the ambassador, like his face has so much more personality than any other character in this book. It's like, did the artist change? Like, it was so confusing. I do think Angel looks great, like just his design and the way his wings kind of expand and kind of like descend and what have you. I think it really is pretty dynamic considering it's a guy in a suit. So I am like, but the faces overall are kind of a problem. So good and bad.
Yeah.
Fariha.
So I was just saying that as soon as the Brazil showed up, and then it's a business book, and there is a Brazilian businessman in X-Men, and I was like, whoa, they're going to bring Sunspot in. And then he's going to be the one who will be like, yeah, no, you planning all of this? Well, guess what? We knew it ahead of time, and we're going to stop the explosion, and it's going to be fine. But they didn't stop the explosion. So they kind of really played into their hand. Even though the news didn't pick up, it actually happened. And the thing is, like, my constant irritation of no representative in United Nations. This is the second time they got sanctioned. By United Nations. First was in Marauders, and now
But do you think that they have a choice? It's not like everybody just gets to be on the Security Council or whatever. Do you think there are countries who are not member states of the United Nations? Do you think Krakoa is allowed in the United Nations?
But that's what I'm saying. Why aren't we talking about it?
Why is that not a plot point? Like, let us into the United Nations.
Yeah, why is that not a plot point? That's what I'm saying. Why is they're going all like huffity puffity all over here?
No.
But then where is like an actual power play? They don't have anyone.
Their seat has been shown to be empty, though, right? We saw that. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. But that's the thing. But that's precisely my point. Why is that seat empty?
Right.
The way they are now. They should be on top of this all the time. That's what they were trying to show. That's what they're trying to show. That, hey, we are on top of some of these things.
No,
but they're not. They're just like huffity-puffity, and they just do all the showboatmanship. But it's like, you're not getting anything out of it. And why is it that's so easy for an important plant like that to be where's your man, Peter? Like, where's Rasputin? He's in Savage Land. What is he doing? Why is he not providing security?
He's not in the He's not in the production. He's
that's the bad. But that's what I'm
farming.
Well, he's painting.
All right.
Why can't he just paint in front of it and like, hey, Bob, I'm Bob.
Step back, please.
Exactly.
But I think that the thing with this is that this is supposedly a ransomware, and for some reason it could actually trigger an explosion. I mean, maybe it doesn't make sense, but this part didn't really bug me too much. And
is it a book that is set in Brazil about business?
No. But it's not.
And Sunspot's in Brazil recently because he was in Brazil in Iron Fist: Heart of the Dragon.
I have become a hardened X-Men fan who have these kind of thoughts.
I want to hear what Tyler's saying.
Is it supposed to be a Brazilian businessman? That's what I'm saying.
No. He's not.
He's French.
He's French.
Yeah, but he's doing business in Brazil.
He chose Brazil because he thinks that there is no nearby gates.
Well, and also, if we remember back to our map of international relationships with Krakoa, I believe Brazil was one of the countries that at the beginning was maybe not accepting drugs from Krakoa. I don't know. I'd have to go way back to a data page that I've long since forgotten. But
so the thing is that the whole time I was thinking, and maybe because this is me just overthinking things, the whole time I was like, Sunspot will show up any moment. It's like, I took care of it. So
he was there on page 2.
Yeah,
was that him? I did not think that was supposed to be Sunspot.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Good,
it was Sunspot and Forge, isn't it?
I am very disappointed if that was Sunspot.
I do want to say on a serious,
it was Sunspot because it's an advertisement, so he's showing different.
Yeah.
I thought that's why I thought it was Sunspot.
All right, well, I got to call time on this because we go long on first issues routinely because they're double length. My parting shot on Angel is you got to have a plan. Okay. Remender did amazing work with him and Uncanny X-Force. Then Aaron kind of reduced him to this blank slate. And, then he was kind of being used as a weapon as Archangel and Bun's Uncanny. All good beats, but they kind of prove that to do anything with Warren now, you can't just have him be wallpaper. You kind of got to decide what's going on. And he makes a little bit of a reference here to like, oh yeah, I could get angry too. And if you carefully note the art, his wings go from more feather-like at the beginning of that adventure to more metallic by the end of that adventure. So again, I think my sum on this is that there's a lot of hints of really interesting things that could happen. But as a first issue plot, Horse Guy blows up the Savage Land base to me just wasn't enough for an issue 1. So I go forward to issue 2 with an open mind and fully rooting for this series to absolutely knock it out of the park. I just don't think this number 1 was it.
Yep.
And also it went from a mini to an ongoing. That gives
we'll see. We'll see about
clearly because we didn't love it in this issue. I am curious going forward how they're going to make business conversations look visually interesting because the cuts to the horses was not doing it clearly. So I'm curious how else you'll show
down there, Harry.
Show me pie charts. Show me bar graphs.
Well, no, I mean,
if there's ever a book for Tom Mueller to get into and do some actual design on the page.
Point.
Yeah.
All right.
Show me, that's what we are here for. Peter and I are all about Excel things.
I don't have anything else to say about horses the rest of the show. I promise everyone listening. Don't worry, we're good.
We're just going to send Emma down there. She knows how to take care of horses. Okay. That is the end of our discussion of X-Corp number 1. If you're looking for discussions,
are we not talking about the flying?
It was cool.
That's cool. They great. X-Men have a helicarrier now. They're mutants. Who cares?
Is a Crowley carrier? Sorry.
Excited for the gala.
I mean, here's my thing. If you do you really, because I'm gonna penance out here if you get me talking about it.
Okay.
So you want to be X-Corp. The whole focus is on their launch or whatever, and their launch is that they're launching a helicarrier. Who cares? What's the point? Shield has had 1,000 of them, and then on top of it, ours teleports to gate. Why? We have magic. We have Lila Cheney. That's not cool, Teeny Howard. It's not cool at all. It's actually so cool with the KEWL that it's actually stupid.
The whole thing, I was mostly hulking out because of the fact that in Marvel Universe, who is impressed by helicarriers? They're not impressed by helicarriers. They have a Hulk.
Also, show me why it matters. Why does the average member of the public care that these X-Men that they've probably heard in the news have their own island, and maybe somebody who knows somebody that they know, got one of the drugs to heal them? Why do they care that this ultra-rich, secluded class of people now have a flying fortress? Make it matter to me. And I think that if I was engaged at all with their PR play from the opening scene, the whole flying helicarrier and also teleports thing just totally got rid of any of my goodwill. And even taking a step back from me who hates things, I was wouldn't that erode goodwill that the public has about mutants? It just seemed really incongruous to what this book is seeming. I'm sorry, I'm hyped now. Tyler,
I know because I think there was a hint that was dropped right in the beginning of the issue or somewhere in the issue that says that the X-Corp is actually advertising a resource that regrows itself. So in some ways, I think it's supposed to meant to be tied to the biotechnology and how they can fly and things like that. I'm not sure, but I'm just thinking there.
It's also possible it's to impress rich people and scare them.
I do agree with you guys with what you just said, because I don't think a floating corp is going to be.
I do. I think that's cool as hell. It's a flying fortress.
There's things that are cool, man.
You don't live because you don't
Look,
live
I'm not made of stone.
No, but there's also,
I think I'd still be kind of into it. A flying fortress.
There is also another thing that they sort of hinted at that we saw in Coda is that they have a HQ in New York. So I don't know what that looks like right now.
I have a theory, but I mean,
that it's a demon. No,
Again,
we're not.
I have a theory.
Okay, that is it for our discussion about X-Corp #1. I promise. If you are looking for discussions of other books out this week in the X-Men line, look elsewhere on the channel because we're going to cover them all. Until, I don't know. Why do we do this again? I'm starting to forget right now.
Because X-Men is better when it's read together. Whether they have an unimpressive helicarrier or not, it's still better.
This is different.
It just goes to show you, man, some of these books that you feel real neutral, giving you full nooch before you get online to talk about them, sometimes becomes the most ridiculous conversation. And sometimes books that we all loved, it's totally flatline. So you never know what you're going to get. And that's why you got to get together and talk about X-Men. On behalf of myself, Fariha, Harry, and Tyler, thank you so much for being part of that discussion of X-Corp #1. And until we get to see you and talk to you again, I hope that you are well.
Bye.
Bye.